Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I'm bringing you into the kitchen today to make a crazy easy recipe for sirloin steak tips. I've been making this recipe for years, and like I just said, it's super easy to make. The meat is fall apart tender. It's just basic ingredients, and traditionally you would serve this with rice or egg noodles. You would maybe spoon it over mashed potatoes, but today I'm actually just going to serve it with some fried cabbage. And so to begin, I've got 2 pounds of sirloin tips, beef tips, and these are pretty big pieces. If you wanted to, you could of course cut these down to bite-sized pieces to make it more of a kind of a meat sauce, I suppose, to put over everything. But since I'm not going to be serving this over anything like noodles or rice or what have you, I'm just going to go ahead and leave these in the great big pieces that I have here. I'm going to season them with a little bit of salt and pepper. Grab the pepper. Oh no, my pepper's out. Alright, I'm just gonna grab my ground pepper. I won't use as much of it. For some reason, to me, the ground kind doesn't taste the same as the kind you grind yourself. Alright, so salt and peppered, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put some butter in my pan here. Get this going. And so I'm just gonna throw in some butter. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of olive oil to this as well, because I'm going to be using a pretty hot pan here, and I'm going to be searing the meat, and you want it to be good and hot, and you don't want to throw this all in at the same time. You want to do this in batches, like maybe half or a third at a time, because if I do that, they're going to release their juices, all of the pieces of meat, and then they'll end up just boiling in their juices instead of searing. And I want to get it nice and browned on the outside, at least on a couple sides of each of these pieces of meat. So we're letting this get good and hot, which is right about there. So now I'm just going to start searing the meat. While the rest of that is searing, hopefully you can hear me over the sizzling, I am going to dice up some onion. I only need about half of this, because you would use a small onion for this, and these onions are pretty big, but I'm going to dice this up pretty finely. So I'm going to put all of my cuts pretty close together. Alright, so I'm going to turn my stove all the way down, and I'm going to pull the rest of the meat out, put it in a dish here. Look at that. Look at that pretty sear on that meat. Okay. So, I'm going to add a little bit more butter. About 2 more tablespoons. Altogether, I use about 3 tablespoons of butter for all of this. I'll set that over here for a little bit. And I'm going to add in the onions. Now there's a whole lot of beautiful dark bits stuck to this pan here, but the acid and the juices from the onions will actually deglaze this without needing to add anything else. Onion is a great natural deglazer. All of this, as it cooks together, will start coming loose from the pan, and the onions will turn deep brown as they absorb all of that. So my pan is still cooling down a little bit, but I'm going to let these cook for a few minutes, and I'm going to add in about 3 cloves of garlic, and then we'll just let those go for a little while, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then we'll add everything else to the pot. And yes, I absolutely shortcut with the garlic. Now I did just get a whole bunch of garlic from Azure Standard, but I already had this open, so I'm going to use that up before I break into the garlic supply that came. And already all of that brown stuff is coming from off of the skillet or the pot bottom and into the onions. So I'm just going to let that go for a few minutes, let those onions kind of soften up just a little bit. And while they're doing that, I'll gather together the rest of my ingredients. Alright, I'm going to add in 4 cups or a quart of beef broth. And you know, I'm actually going to switch this to a deeper pot or a more narrow pot. That way my meat will be under the broth. So let me turn this off. We'll use this one instead. Let me very carefully pour this into my other pot here. I think this pot was maybe a little too wide. Make sure I get all that good stuff out. There we go. I think that'll work a little bit better. Alright, in with the steak tips. There we go. This way the meat's under the broth and will be able to simmer and get nice and tender. Alright, so turn the stove back on. Get that heating up. So let's finish the ingredients. I'm going to add in about 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, which I just about never measure. We're going to add in a 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. Go. We're going to add in a bay leaf. Bay leaf. Alright. Then we're adding in a teaspoon of parsley, if you saw that. I'm just going to stir this together. And then I'm going to bring this up to a boil, reduce the heat down to a simmer, throw a lid on it, And I'm just going to let this cook for about an hour to an hour and a half, or until this meat is just beautifully tender. Alright, it's up to a boil, so we're going to turn it all the way down to low. Put the lid on and let it simmer. Hi, Milk Dad. Milk Dad, what are you doing? Eating the grass. So we had a great big storm system roll through here yesterday. Got a good bit of rain, brought the creek back. We were already down to a trickle. We have a little bit of a waterfall, but if the weather doesn't give us rain again soon, it'll be gone in no time. So a while back we had moved the fence and opened it up to give Sophie and Amos access to the creek so they could just walk down here and drink out of it whenever they wanted to. But when the water went down, they could just walk right out of the creek. So I strung that line across just as a visual barrier. But before too long, we'll have to close this up because that won't keep them in. Although it's actually going to be a moot point here in a few months, I think. Also, I had to have some experts come out this week because we're going to have some work done here on the property. Not the kind of work we would like to have done, but we will. Hi, Spunky. What are you doing? Hi, Sophie. Is it treat time? Treat time and dinner time. Sophie. There you go. Here, Amos. Hi, baby. Nope. Stay right here. Stay right here. Come here. Come here. Come here. So it's fly season. So if you don't care for this too much, but the flies absolutely tear her up, especially her ankles. So I lure her in here with treats. I don't know if y'all can even see me in here right now. I lure her in here with treats. And then I grab hold of her and I spray down her ankles and her back for good measure. Good girl, Sophie. There you go, baby. Do I have any more? Nope. One more. There you go. She's actually pretty good about it. This punk right here, though, he won't let us catch him. We've tried. But the flies don't seem to bother him too much. They just go after Sophie. Don't they, baby? Poor girl. I know. Oh, thank you, baby. Thank you. So we use these pool skimmers for cleaning out their water because, you know, things fall out of the trees, like leaves and twigs and, well, especially leaves in the fall. But then in the springtime, we get all of the oak flowers and pine flowers and all of that. Although over here, it's mainly hardwoods. Over by the goats, it's a lot of pine over in that spot. You get all the pine flowers down in there. All those little brown things that look like little caterpillars of sorts. And scoop them all up. But every so often we do dump this whole thing out, scrub it all down and all that. But the pool skimmer really helps keep the debris out and keep the water clean in between. I just noticed there's something shiny on the ground. What is that? Oh, it's a necklace charm. Huh. Wonder where that came from. Kind of heavy. Alright. Good night, Sophie. Good night, Amos. Go eat your dinner. I wonder where that charm came from. Probably somebody that used to live here once upon a time. Definitely not mine. I'm not big into heart-shaped things. Although I do have a heart-shaped necklace, I've never worn it. It was a gift. Well, I inherited it from my mother-in-law when she passed away. I don't know if it's diamonds. Kind of looks like diamonds, but it's probably zirconia or something like that. I don't know. But it's a great big heart. And like I said, I'm not into hearts. Hi, quackers. Y'all doing good? Hi, babies. How y'all doing? Hi. Y'all need some fresh water too? All right, I'm a-coming. I am always very guarded when I am spraying out the duck's water. because it kind of goes everywhere. And I learned the lesson the hard way, to keep the mouth closed when it comes to dirty duck water. Years ago, I contracted Giardia that way. It was a nightmare, truly a nightmare. It was pre-COVID, it was the sickest I had ever been in my life. I would not wish that on anyone. Anyone. All right, so evening chores are done. And so now I am going to start frying up my cabbage because the steak tips over there are pretty much done. They've been cooking for a bit. Grabbing my compost bowl. Toss the cores in there. Alright, so I'm gonna let this pan start heating up. I've got some butter in there. Let that start melting and get warmed up while I chop up this cabbage real quick. I do actually have a larger cutting board. It's in this drawer. This one sits on top of it normally. This is kind of my favorite cutting board. But I always think, gee, I should have pulled out the bigger one. When I'm doing something like this and I've got things going everywhere and falling off the cutting board. But that's alright. Countertop's clean. Alright, got that melted butter. Get that spread around a little bit. Go ahead and toss this in. Try not to make a mess. Alright. Add some salt. Take a look at these beef tips. Let me grab the spoon. Look at those. Let me see if I can grab hold of one and cut it. Oh yeah. That just busted right in half. Perfect. Alright, so to thicken up the liquid, the broth here, and turn it into a gravy, you're going to make a slurry. And you can mix cold water with cornstarch, you can use tapioca, or you can use arrowroot. Some people use flour. I'm not a huge fan of using flour for gravies. Not for something like this, not for when you're thickening it up afterwards. Now, if I'm cooking the flour ahead of time, like for, say, biscuits and gravy, I cook up the flour with the drippings and then I add in the milk. But for something like this, I don't use flour. I'll use cornstarch, arrowroot, or tapioca, one of the three. Now, this is not something that I ever really measure. I just take a little bit of cold water, always cold, and I grab a fork and I just scoop out a couple forkfuls. whisk it, which is why I use a fork. It's very, very handy. It's like a little mini whisk. Whisk it smooth, and then we'll heat that up. And I won't put all of this in right away. I'll put in about half of it, let it cook for a minute, and then if it needs to be thicker, then I'll add the other half. Takes about a minute for these slurries to do their thing. And of course, if you want it even thicker, just mix up a little bit more slurry. You don't need a lot of water, just enough really to dissolve the starch that you're using, whether it's cornstarch or tapioca or arrowroot, whichever one. So I'm just going to let this sit here for a few minutes while I finish up cooking my cabbage. Alright, so my cabbage is done and it's just beautifully caramelized. I like it when my cabbage has some brown bits in there, nice and caramelized, just like caramelized onions. And then we've got the beef tips. Look at that. Aren't these beautiful? Alright, I'm gonna see if I'm gonna try and show you how tender this is. I don't know if I can do this gently. Well, there we go. It's starting to fall apart. There you go. See how tender these are? Just falling apart. So good. There's my dinner tonight. Sirloin beef tips, slow cooked, fall apart tender, and some fried cabbage. Now, this recipe is not yet on my website. It will be published there in a couple of weeks, but I will go ahead and put the measurements for all the ingredients in the video description down below if you'd like to go ahead and make this. So that's it for today, friends. Thanks for spending some time with me here in the kitchen. Now I'm gonna go eat.